The racing inside LFM can be quite a tricky thing to get right, with a whole bunch of very small details in the game that can certainly add up to race performance. And I quickly found out that if I did a little bit of preparation, I could certainly overcome some of these challenges. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 steps that I take in preparation for any of the LFM races that I do each week, and that all helps me produce the results that you guys see in my race videos. And stick around to the end because I have a small bonus tip which can be a big help for these LFM races also, on top of it being a lot of fun. But I really hope that some of these tips will help you out there as well, so let's dive in. So the first thing I do each week on LFM is choose my races. Now I'm not at a level to go after all of the different races that are on offer each week inside LFM, so my decision each week is to pick a couple of races that I am going to focus on. That allows me to be a bit more time efficient with the racing that I do, as well as being able to have the time to put in the pre-work to be successful in them. Sometimes those are tracks that I really like and want to be good at, and sometimes it's taking the opportunity to challenge myself on tracks that I'm not so good at. Also, if something like Pro Series is on the agenda, I know it's going to take a significant amount of my time to prepare for that single race, so I will often reduce the number of other races that I do to give that one the attention that it needs. After choosing the races you want to do, it's then good to put some goals into what you want to achieve in those races during the week. Now for me, I don't set results-based goals because it's very hard to determine who is going to be in these races when you jump in. But having a goal that is in your hands, such as being consistent during races, having no large accidents, or potentially trying to aim for a specific qualifying time, is a good way to have goals that are achievable for you, and that gives you a sense of success whether you have tough competition or not. A good example of this is a few weeks ago last season during the Bathurst round, I was able to produce consistency across the week, which was the main goal, having no big accidents on the mountain. However, in the last race of that week, I was given a split 2 race and my pace was good enough for a podium position. It was a nice way to end the week, but if a podium was the result that I was after, and I didn't get that split 2 race, then I would never have achieved that goal. So sometimes the results are more of a bonus, and it's good to focus on things that are in your hands so that you can feel proud of what you've achieved during your race week. Right, step number 3 and onwards is all in the sim. You want to start out by doing some initial practice. Jump into an LFM practice server so that the balance performance of the car you've chosen is loaded in. Throw in a race setup and head out with about 30 litres of fuel and start doing some initial laps. You want to make some initial PSI changes, but the key part of this first part of practice session is to continue to work on your braking markers, your line choice, and slowly build into a comfortable lap for yourself. Now when exploring the track and exploring the different braking points around the circuit, I try and look for fixed points on the track to base that on. Some tracks certainly have little lines or shadows on the road which can be really good braking markers, but remember that in other daylight conditions, night sessions for example, in LFM races, those reference points will not be there. So you need to work really hard at finding fixed points on the track as your point of reference, as well as some of the other line choices that you have, turn-in points, acceleration points, etc. as well. On certain tracks this might take longer than others, and once I'm really comfortable with the pace that I have, that's when I move on to step number 4. And that is lap analysis. Now there's a couple of resources I use to analyze my laps. The first one being a very cool Google document from Only Speed, a YouTuber who's got some very cool track guides, including free setups for most cars in the current version. And he also looks after a Google document which has a full chart of reference for all the different cars and all the different tracks across LFM. Now this is broken down into a percentage range, and you'll be familiar with this when you set your LFM license because the target time is considered a 107% reference lap time versus the best times in LFM. His Google Doc breaks down all the different ranges of lap times, and what you'll find is after a few weeks your skill set will fall you into a particular percentage range. For me, I'm always looking at around the 102 to 103% lap time time range for consistent race pace, but I'll throw a link in the description so you can start analysing some of your lap times. And seriously, I use this resource all of the time. Thank you so much to Only Speed for looking after that resource and providing it free to us users. Definitely go check out his channel if you want to know more. The second thing I do is look at the lap telemetry. Now currently I'm using a feature inside the Go Fast app by Go Setups. I have a paid subscription to Go Setups, and this is the app they use to load the setups into the game. However, further to that, the app has some features which are free to all users, and they are the lap telemetry. The reference point of that telemetry is the Go Setup baseline lap, which is incredibly fast, but the key things I'm looking for is where the braking points are for key corners, what gears might be used in certain corners, and how early and what sort of throttle trace is being used out of the corner. I pick up lots of little details from this and quite quickly realize which corners I'm losing the most speed on. It's not always that I can then fully replicate this lap time, as I'm not quite at that skill level yet, but there's certainly some corners that you know you can brake deeper into, or in some cases it's a case that you are braking too late into a corner and need to bring that marker back a little bit. Also, knowing what gear certain corners are taking at has actually been very useful for me at some tracks, and quite quickly you can find maybe 2 or 3 tenths on some corners that you hadn't quite picked the right brake reference for. Now be careful though, because this is a part of practice that you can get a little bit overthinking with. You don't want to spend too long here analysing every little tiny bit of your lap, because let's be honest, there is always more time to find. Once you work out your major losses within the lap, you want to quickly move on to the final piece of the preparation, step number 5, and that is locking in the setup. Now at this stage of the process, I am still using the race setup, continuing to do laps, focusing on the consistency around the time that I'm targeting. Once I'm really happy with how that race pace is going, I then like to continue to lock in the PSI, and I use the ACC drive feature. After you drive enough of a stint, it will give you an adjustment to make. Continue to do this until you're more or less happy with the consistency of your race pace, and then save the setup with a little TP mark for tyre pressure in the 23 degrees that LFM server is set to. At that point, I then switch to qualifying mode and go out and set some qualifying simulations. And you can do this either by taking all the fuel out of your current race setup, or like myself, using the qualifying setup that Go Setups have. Again, go through the same process of locking in the PSI for that range. Now you don't want to do this too early though, because as you find lap time in the lap, you are going to then need to make adjustments because you're driving the car harder, which warms the tires up and brings the PSI up. So try and do this more or less near the end, once you're happy with how you're driving your lap. Now the reason that you lock these away as separate safe setups is because you don't have a lot of time inside an LFM race to make some of those adjustments. So when I jump into an LFM race that's say 26 degrees, I can quickly load up my known 23 degree tire pressure setup, and then make the 3-point adjustment to the PSI ready to go for the session. I find that this means that basically every session I do has very good tire pressures by the time the race is underway, and particularly sprint races where you can't make adjustments in game, it gives you a nice little advantage to having a variation of tire pressures across a week that I was having earlier on. Like I said at the beginning, all these little details add up to race pace, and this is the sort of preparation that I feel helps me be a lot more consistent during my races in LFM. And with that, you are ready to go and tackle LFM races for the week. But the bonus tip you've been waiting for. What about race practice, you might be saying? Well, I have my own little hack for that, and that is community. You see, there are lots of communities out there that do racing on ACC. And personally, I've been doing some community racing with the guys from the Sim Cafe, run by Jeff TSC, a YouTuber who's got an awesome community, and on a particular day of the week, often a Saturday before an LFM week, They will do community races at one or both of those LFM circuits for the 25 or 45-minute races the following week. Of course, most of the time I don't have some of these other steps completed and ready to go before this community race, but it's a fantastic way to race against some other drivers on track in a fun and casual way. Now, I am fortunate that the guys from the Sim Cafe are all really good racers who race really hard and really clean. So we get to all test out the racecraft in a really competitive way. If you want to check out the guys from the Sim Cafe, I'm going to leave a link to Jeff's YouTube channel in the comments, and there'll be a link to his Discord there as well. Come and get involved. It's a really cool community from my point, but I certainly encourage you to go seek out some other communities that might have some of these options available to you also. Now, I certainly don't think you need to be doing this step to be prepared for racing in LFM, but it can be a fun way to do some more casual racing, particularly when the LFM races can have a bit of pressure attached to them with the rating systems and all. So guys, there we are, all the things that I do in preparation for LFM racing each week. As I said, it all stacks up to the race results that I show you in my race videos. If you have any questions or queries about what I've talked about, please let me know in the comments. This is obviously not a foolproof system, just something that works really well for me. And if there's a piece of the puzzle that you do that I don't, that might help others, please let us know in the comments as well. I really enjoy how the community often adds really good information to these videos to make it a better resource for people. Of course, a reminder that all the resources that I've mentioned will be in the description below if you wanted to check those out. If you love this information, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this coming out soon. Till then, race hard, stay positive. We'll see you again soon in another video. Cheers.